Dear brothers and sisters, today I want to share with you a profound and motivating reminder about the blessings of reciting a specific Quranic verse after Fajr. The early morning hours immediately after the Fajr prayer are a time of immense spiritual power, a moment when the heart is fresh, the mind is focused, and Allah's mercy and provision are abundant. Among the countless verses of the Quran, one in particular has been highlighted by scholars and the righteous for its capacity to attract sustenance, barakah, and lasting blessings for generations. Reciting this verse 11 times after Fajr, with sincerity and reflection, opens the heart, aligns the believer with divine guidance, and invites opportunities that may seem impossible in ordinary circumstances. This practice serves as a reminder that our efforts combined with Allah's will can lead to prosperity, stability, and a legacy of blessing that benefits both us and future generations. Fajr, the early morning prayer, holds a unique and powerful place in the life of a believer. It is not simply one of the 5 obligatory prayers, it is a moment filled with immense spiritual significance, a time when the heart is fresh, the mind is clear, and the world is still. The Prophet ﷺ said, "The 2 rakats of Fajr are better than the world and all it contains." This statement reminds us that the value of sincere worship during these early hours far exceeds any material gain or worldly achievement. When a believer rises before the sun, leaving behind the comfort of sleep, and stands in humility before Allah, it is an act of devotion that carries both immediate and long-term spiritual impact. Fajr sets the tone for the day, aligning the heart with divine guidance and creating a momentum of faith, focus, and intention that can influence every action that follows. The time of Fajr is particularly blessed because it occurs at the transition from night to day, a symbolic period of renewal and awakening. While the majority of the world is still asleep, the believer who awakens for Fajr engages in a sacred dialogue with Allah, uninterrupted by distractions. This quiet and still environment enhances concentration, reflection, and mindfulness, allowing the heart to be fully present in worship. The early morning is a time when the soul is most receptive and the mind is clear, making it the ideal moment to connect deeply with Allah through prayer, reflection, and recitation of the Qur'an. Scholars have emphasized that engaging in worship during these hours is a demonstration of sincerity and love for Allah, as it requires effort, intention, and prioritization of the eternal over temporary comfort. Performing Fajr on time and with focus is a gateway to numerous spiritual benefits. It reinforces discipline, as the believer must overcome the natural inclination to remain in sleep and instead rise with purpose. This discipline extends beyond the act of prayer itself, influencing other areas of life, including work, study, and personal conduct. By consistently performing Fajr, the believer develops a pattern of prioritizing spiritual obligations, cultivating patience, resilience, and self-control. The regular practice of rising early for prayer instills a sense of responsibility, reminding the heart that devotion requires effort and intention, and that spiritual growth is achieved through consistent action rather than occasional effort. The spiritual environment after Fajr is unique because it allows the believer to engage in additional acts of worship that are highly rewarding. This includes reciting Quranic verses, making heartfelt dua, and engaging in dhikr. These actions, when performed in the quiet aftermath of Fajr, carry a heightened sense of significance. The Prophet ﷺ and his companions often took advantage of this time to seek forgiveness, guidance, and provision, recognizing that the early morning is a moment when divine mercy descends abundantly. By aligning additional worship with the timing of Fajr, the believer maximizes the spiritual potential of the day, opening themselves to blessings that extend into every aspect of life. Fajr also represents a moment of hope and renewal. Each day is a fresh opportunity to seek Allah's guidance, correct past mistakes, and set intentions for righteous action. The act of rising early serves as a symbolic and practical reminder that life is a series of moments in which devotion, sincerity, and effort can accumulate into lasting spiritual and worldly benefits. The quiet hours of the morning allow for reflection on personal goals, moral responsibilities, and the cultivation of gratitude. Through Fajr, the believer is reminded that no matter the challenges of the day ahead, there is always an opportunity to connect with Allah, seek His guidance, and receive His mercy. Moreover, the practice of Fajr influences the heart and mind throughout the day. Those who establish a routine of rising early often experience enhanced focus, clarity, and emotional balance. The act of beginning the day in worship shapes priorities, encourages ethical behavior, and instills a sense of purpose in daily actions. By making Fajr a consistent part of life, the believer cultivates a rhythm of devotion that strengthens faith, enhances discipline, and prepares the heart for sustained reliance on Allah in both spiritual and worldly matters. The timing, significance, and spiritual atmosphere of Fajr collectively demonstrate why it is considered a cornerstone of the believer's daily practice. By awakening for prayer, reflecting on the Qur'an, and engaging in heartfelt supplication, the believer harnesses a moment of extraordinary blessing and mercy. Fajr is not simply a ritual, it is a transformative experience that nurtures the heart, aligns intentions, and opens the door to divine guidance and provision, creating a foundation of spiritual strength that carries through the day. Once the believer has established the practice of performing Fajr on time, the next step is to understand the immense value of reciting Quranic verses after the prayer. The Qur'an is not merely words to be read, it is a living guidance, a source of mercy, barakah, and spiritual nourishment. Reciting it after Fajr aligns the heart with divine wisdom at a time when the soul is pure, attentive, and receptive. Scholars and spiritual guides have highlighted that certain verses carry specific blessings when recited during this sacred time, particularly in relation to sustenance, protection, and divine facilitation. Reciting a verse 11 times, for example, is a practice that strengthens focus, reinforces intention, and invites Allah's mercy to manifest in both spiritual and worldly affairs. The repetition serves as a form of dhikr, a remembrance that elevates consciousness, fosters humility, and amplifies the believer's connection with Allah. The act of reciting Quranic verses after Fajr carries both spiritual and practical significance. Spiritually, it is an opportunity to internalize the meanings, reflect on Allah's promises, and cultivate sincerity in worship. Unlike daytime recitation, which can be distracted by daily tasks and concerns, the early morning provides a peaceful environment where the heart can concentrate fully on the words of Allah. This concentration allows the believer to feel the transformative power of the Qur'an, strengthening faith, calming the heart, and fostering hope. Practically, the repetition of specific verses is associated with the opening of doors of provision, protection, and guidance. Many righteous scholars and narrators have emphasized that consistent recitation during these hours leads to blessings that extend not only to the individual, but to their family and generations to come. The timing after Fajr is particularly significant because it represents a moment of spiritual elevation. The early morning hours are known for their purity, calmness, and receptivity. The Prophet ﷺ said that the angels ascend and descend during this time, and that dua is more likely to be answered. Engaging in Quranic recitation during these hours aligns the believer with divine favor and maximizes the impact of their worship. The physical act of recitation combined with focused reflection creates a synergy between the heart, mind, and soul, enhancing the spiritual benefits and ensuring that the worshipper's efforts are met with divine attention. Another important aspect is the intention behind recitation. Sincere intention elevates the act from a ritual to a transformative experience. When the believer recites a Quranic verse with the purpose of seeking Allah's guidance, blessings, and provision, they demonstrate humility, devotion, and trust in His wisdom. This intentionality strengthens the connection between human effort and divine will, reminding the believer that all sustenance, opportunity, and success ultimately come from Allah. Repetition of the verse 11 times reinforces this focus, cultivating mindfulness and reinforcing the believer's reliance on Allah. The benefits of reciting Quranic verses after Fajr are both immediate and long-lasting. Immediately, the heart experiences calm, clarity, and a sense of closeness to Allah. The mind becomes focused, and the believer feels spiritually uplifted and emotionally balanced. Over time, consistent engagement with this practice cultivates a pattern of devotion that impacts daily life, decision-making, and behavior. Families benefit as well, as the blessings of sincere worship extend beyond the individual to create an environment of spiritual and material barakah. Generational impact is emphasized in the narrations of scholars who note that consistent recitation and reflection can produce long-term benefits for descendants, creating a legacy of faith, prosperity, and reliance on Allah. Real-life experiences of believers who have adopted this practice demonstrate its transformative potential. Many report unexpected opportunities, relief from financial difficulties, or solutions to persistent problems after committing to early morning Quranic recitation. These experiences illustrate the connection between consistent spiritual effort, sincere intention, and divine facilitation. They serve as a reminder that Allah responds to those who remember Him, especially during the blessed hours of Fajr, and that even small repeated actions can lead to profound long-lasting change. By reciting Quranic verses after Fajr with sincerity, reflection, and repetition, the believer cultivates both spiritual elevation and practical blessing. The practice aligns the heart with divine guidance, opens doors of provision, and establishes a foundation of barakah that can impact the believer's family and future generations, demonstrating the immense power of early morning devotion. After recognizing the power of reciting Quranic verses after Fajr, it is essential to understand the transformative potential of the specific verse recited 11 times and the deep impact it can have on the believer's life and future generations. This verse is more than a string of words, it is a conduit of divine mercy, guidance, and provision. When recited with sincerity and reflection, it becomes a powerful tool for invoking Allah's blessings, attracting sustenance, and creating a legacy of barakah that extends beyond the immediate life of the worshipper. Scholars and righteous predecessors have emphasized that the early morning is a time when Allah's mercy is abundant, the heart is most receptive, and supplications are more likely to be answered, making this practice both spiritually profound and practically beneficial. The repeated recitation of this verse 11 times enhances focus, intention, and spiritual alignment. Repetition is not meant as a mechanical exercise, it is a means of immersing the heart in reflection and remembrance of Allah. Each repetition reinforces the believer's awareness of Allah's sovereignty, His ability to provide, and the importance of reliance on Him alone. Through this practice, the worshipper cultivates mindfulness, a deeper connection to divine guidance, and a heightened sense of hope and optimism. The number 11, while not arbitrary, encourages continuity and rhythm in devotion, allowing the believer to enter a meditative state in which the words of Allah resonate deeply within the heart. The verse's association with provision and generational blessings highlights the holistic nature of worship in Islam. Acts of devotion are not isolated, they ripple outward, influencing family, community, and future generations. By committing to the recitation of this verse after Fajr, the believer seeks not only personal sustenance and barakah, but also establishes a spiritual foundation that can benefit children, grandchildren, and descendants. The concept of generational blessing underscores the enduring impact of sincere worship and demonstrates that consistent spiritual practices are investments in both the present and the future. It reminds the believer that their actions today, no matter how small, have the potential to shape outcomes and opportunities for generations to come. The emotional and spiritual impact of this practice is equally significant. Reciting the verse after Fajr cultivates calmness, clarity, and a sense of divine presence in the heart. It strengthens reliance on Allah, fosters gratitude for existing blessings, and instills patience in awaiting results. The believer who engages in this practice regularly develops resilience, hope, and confidence that Allah's plan is unfolding in the best possible way, even if immediate outcomes are not visible. Real-life experiences of those who have maintained this devotion illustrate that consistent recitation often coincides with unexpected opportunities, ease in financial matters, and solutions to persistent challenges. These experiences reinforce the connection between spiritual consistency, intention, and divine facilitation. Consistency, intention, and divine facilitation. Reflection on the meaning of the verse is also essential to maximize its transformative effect. Understanding the wisdom, mercy, and promises embedded in the words of Allah allows the worshipper to connect emotionally and spiritually with the recitation. Reflection deepens sincerity, enhances focus, and transforms the act from mere repetition to a profound engagement with the Qur'an. This engagement nurtures gratitude, humility, and awareness, reinforcing the believer's understanding that all provision comes from Allah and that reliance on Him is central to success both spiritually and materially. In addition, combining the recitation with heartfelt dua amplifies the spiritual benefits. After reciting the verse 11 times, the believer may supplicate for guidance, provision, protection, and the well-being of family and future generations. This combination of Quranic engagement and personal dua creates a holistic spiritual practice that addresses both internal and external needs, linking worship with tangible outcomes in the believer's life. It demonstrates that spiritual discipline, reflection, and reliance on Allah are inseparable from real-world blessings and prosperity. Through consistent recitation, sincere reflection, and heartfelt dua, the believer engages in a practice that strengthens faith, nurtures hope, and opens doors of barakah. The impact extends beyond personal gain to influence family, community, and generations to come, illustrating the enduring power of connecting with Allah during the blessed early morning hours. This practice is a reminder that spiritual consistency coupled with trust in divine wisdom transforms lives and secures blessings for the present and future beyond the recitation itself. The spiritual and emotional benefits of engaging with this Quranic verse after Fajr are profound, creating a deep and lasting impact on the believer's heart and life. When one rises early, performs Fajr, and then dedicates time to recite the verse 11 times, it cultivates a unique environment for reflection, devotion, and connection with Allah. This practice strengthens faith, nurtures hope, and instills a sense of purpose that extends far beyond the moments of recitation. The quiet hours of the early morning, when the world is still and distractions are minimal, provide a sacred space where the heart can fully engage with the words of Allah. This uninterrupted focus allows the believer to internalize meanings, reflect on divine promises, and feel a sense of closeness that is often difficult to achieve during the busyness of the day. Emotionally, the practice brings calmness, clarity, and reassurance. Starting the day with Fajr and Quranic recitation positions the believer to face challenges with a grounded heart, a hopeful mindset, and a reliance on Allah's wisdom. The early morning moments foster patience, resilience, and optimism, helping the believer navigate difficulties with a sense of trust and surrender. By beginning the day with remembrance of Allah and reflection on His guidance, the heart is fortified against despair, anxiety, and the pressures of worldly concerns. The repetition of the verse 11 times reinforces focus and intention, allowing the believer to enter a meditative state where the mind and heart are fully aligned with divine wisdom. Spiritually, this practice nurtures a deeper awareness of Allah's presence in every aspect of life. Engaging with the Qur'an immediately after Fajr strengthens consciousness of God's sovereignty, mercy, and provision. The believer is reminded that sustenance, guidance, and blessings are ultimately determined by Allah, and that consistent effort in worship coupled with trust produces extraordinary results. This awareness cultivates humility, gratitude, and mindfulness, shaping behavior, decision-making, and interactions throughout the day. By internalizing these spiritual lessons, the believer experiences a transformation that extends beyond ritual worship to influence character, relationships, and daily conduct. The practice also reinforces discipline and intentionality. Rising early, performing Fajr, and dedicating time to Quranic recitation requires effort, planning, and commitment. This discipline strengthens self-control, perseverance, and focus, demonstrating that spiritual growth is cultivated through consistent effort rather than sporadic action. Over time, this pattern of early morning devotion creates a rhythm of life aligned with divine guidance, instilling habits that promote both spiritual and practical success. The believer learns that small intentional acts of worship repeated consistently can lead to profound and lasting blessings for themselves and their families. Another significant aspect is the cultivation of hope and trust in Allah's plan. By reciting the verse and engaging in reflection and dua, the believer develops a mindset of reliance and surrender, understanding that while effort is required, ultimate outcomes rest with Allah. This trust alleviates worry and fosters confidence that challenges will be resolved, opportunities will arise, and provision will be granted at the right time. It is a reminder that Allah's wisdom governs all circumstances and that consistent devotion, patience, and reflection open the heart to divine blessings. The practice also creates an opportunity for generational impact. The barakah and provision invoked through consistent recitation extend beyond the individual to benefit family, children, and future generations. Scholars have emphasized that the spiritual energy cultivated in early morning worship carries lasting influence, shaping not only personal circumstances but also the well-being and prosperity of descendants. This reinforces the idea that acts of devotion are investments in the future, linking spiritual practice with tangible outcomes that endure across time. Real-life experiences of believers who maintain this practice highlight its transformative power. Many report increased clarity, unexpected opportunities, and solutions to challenges that seemed insurmountable. Families experience blessings, financial ease, and emotional stability, illustrating that consistent early morning engagement with the Quran produces both spiritual and worldly benefits. The act of recitation, reflection, and dua becomes a foundation for hope, resilience, and abundance, demonstrating that devotion in the quiet hours after Fajr has far-reaching effects. By engaging consistently in recitation after Fajr, the believer cultivates a heart that is calm, focused, and aligned with Allah's guidance. The practice strengthens faith, nurtures hope, and establishes a rhythm of devotion that brings spiritual, emotional, and generational blessings, illustrating the transformative potential of starting the day in sincere worship. Once the believer understands the significance of reciting the Quranic verse after Fajr and experiences its spiritual and emotional impact, the next step is to implement this practice with consistency, intentionality, and sincerity. Consistency is the key to unlocking the long-term benefits of any act of worship, and early morning Quranic recitation is no exception. Rising each day for Fajr, performing the prayer with focus, and then dedicating time to recite the designated verse 11 times establishes a sacred rhythm that transforms both heart and life. The Prophet ﷺ emphasized regularity in acts of worship, demonstrating that small, consistent efforts are far more spiritually impactful than occasional intense devotion. By maintaining this practice, the believer gradually develops discipline, patience, and a sense of alignment with Allah's guidance, ensuring that the spiritual momentum gained in the early morning continues to influence every aspect of the day. Intentionality in this practice is equally important. Recitation should not be a mechanical or hurried act but a focused engagement with the words of Allah. Each repetition of the verse should be accompanied by reflection on its meaning, awareness of Allah's presence, and heartfelt supplication for guidance, provision, and barakah. This intentional approach transforms the act from a routine into a powerful spiritual exercise, deepening the connection between the worshipper and Allah. When the believer recites with purpose and sincerity, the heart becomes attuned to divine wisdom, and the spiritual energy of the Quran resonates more profoundly, creating an environment in which dua is more likely to be accepted and blessings are more readily manifested. Preparation is another critical element. Adequate rest, purification through ablution, and a clean, quiet space enhance the quality of worship and allow the heart to focus fully on recitation and reflection. By preparing both physically and spiritually, the believer maximizes the benefits of the early morning hours and demonstrates seriousness in seeking Allah's guidance and provision. This preparation also fosters mindfulness, reinforcing the understanding that every act of devotion requires effort, sincerity, and attention to detail. Over time, these habits cultivate a disciplined, spiritually attuned mindset that influences behavior, decision-making, and daily routines. The practice of reciting this verse after Fajr also nurtures trust and reliance on Allah. While the believer is required to make consistent effort in performing the prayer and recitation, the outcomes ultimately rest in Allah's hands. This balance between effort and surrender fosters patience, hope, and confidence that divine wisdom governs all circumstances. Real-life experiences demonstrate that those who maintain this practice often witness opportunities, provision, and solutions to challenges that seem impossible, reinforcing the lesson that reliance on Allah, combined with sincere devotion, produces remarkable results. Trusting in Allah's timing and plan transforms the heart, allowing the believer to face life's uncertainties with calmness, optimism, and resilience.